You're at the Coaching Inn, 3D Coaching's virtual pub, where we enjoy conversations with people who are engaged in the world of coaching.
Welcome to this week's edition of the Coaching Inn. And today it's my pleasure to be in the company of Liz Ogborn, who is a coach and who sent me an email and said, can we talk about what's coaching? So I said, come in and let's talk at the Coaching Inn. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you, Claire. It's lovely to be here.
It's good to have you here. Tell us a bit about your coaching story.
Well, it probably starts way back, but I just didn't realise that until recently. During the pandemic, I had some coaching myself. I was kind of, our children had left home. I was ready for a new thing. I had some coaching from a fantastic coach. He's now my supervisor, which is great. And yeah, within the second session, she was kind of, I found myself talking about coaching as an option. And as soon as I began to talk about it, it seemed totally resonant with lots of things I've done in the past, coach-like things that I've done in the past, coach-like roles or coach-like behaviour that I've exhibited without calling it coaching. So I trained as a coach and set up my business last year.
Fantastic. Isn't it funny how we are and we don't know we are, and then suddenly we would discover that we always were?
Yeah, that's great. And I love that because I'm a big believer in, living out of our true selves, living out of who we truly are. And, when you discover or get a name for something that you naturally do, it's very powerful and liberating.
Yeah. Yeah. When I discovered after 8 years what I'd been doing, it was so amazing. Because I'd always been trying to go to, well, it's something like this and it's not like that, but it's a little bit like the other. So tell us about your question about how we describe this thing we do.
Yeah, so actually, I think the question first came up when I was in one of your live masterclasses, and it came out of a discussion we were having, but there wasn't really time to unpack it. So that was when I think you invited me into the Coaching Inn. And the question that I asked you in that live masterclass was, how do we talk about coaching to new or prospective clients? But I've since added to that question around, so how do we talk to new or prospective clients about coaching so that they ... And then my list is growing of the so that they. And I suppose where I've got to for today is so that they understand what coaching is, so that they understand what coaching isn't, so that they see their need for it, how they might benefit. And my kind of marketing head goes, so that they decide to book some coaching. And then the final one I've got at the moment is so that they come prepared or come unprepared, we might say. So that they arrive ready, I suppose.
Yeah. Which may be prepared and may be unprepared. Okay, what great questions they are. And as you said in that email to me, Liz, we had, Sue and I had a conversation in the first episode of the year, didn't we, about what's coaching and what would it look like if. So I guess my question to you is, what do we need to do today to build on that in this conversation?
I think it's about, the conversation you and Sue had was great. I found it super helpful. And it was around how do we talk about coaching? Or no, it was what is coaching, wasn't it? What is coaching? What is this thing called coaching? And I suppose my question develops that. So how then do we talk about it?
Yeah.
Because when we're actually talking about it, we're speaking with real people who all come with diverse previous experiences or not conceptions or perceptions about coaching or not, preferred ways of learning or hearing about things, different personality styles, etc. So I suppose it's applying the conversation you and Sue had to how do we then speak about that with the diverse range of people that we speak with about coaching.
When we don't know what's unique about their bit of diversity.
Yes, because if they're a new or prospective client, we probably don't know them very well at all, if at all.
Mm. So how will you know by the end of this conversation that we've moved this forward a bit, Liz?
I think I will go away with probably a list of phrases or ideas around how to think about this. I like lists of things, but now I'm thinking out loud and thinking maybe it won't be a list, maybe it will just be. I think I'd like to go away with some more clear thoughts about how we speak about it. And I don't know if I can be any more specific than that right now.
Clear thoughts.
Yeah, I just want to get this out loud and uncover any nuggets of wisdom around it, and see what happens.
Okay, shall we do that then?
Yeah.
Where do you want to start?
I think where I'd like to start is just reflecting on some of the ways I have described coaching to people.
Sure.
And what's been useful and not useful for some people. So, I mean, in the last 7 or 8 months since becoming a coach, I've described coaching to new or prospective clients in so many ways, and I've heard it described in even more. And what fascinates me is the response you get to the different descriptions, because I've been using this as a kind of play, like an experiment.
Yeah.
I'm going to describe it like this to this person today and see what lands for them and see what takes. And then the next day I might try a different way, or use the same way and see what happens if they get the same response. And it's been so varied. So I've described coaching. This is just some of the ways I've described coaching. And this is just bits of it sometimes. Coaching is a conversation between us about you. Coaching is a conversation where you get new insights into what's going on for you. I like that one. I got that from somewhere. A book I read.
Really?
Yeah.
Excellent. Good to hear that.
Coaching is like a paddock, and I'm using my hands here to gesture a kind of space.
Yeah.
A paddock, a boundaried space in which your thoughts can run wild.
Oh,
wow. I've had interesting responses to that. Coaching is a safe space for you to think. Coaching is where I partner with you as you think something through. Coaching is a conversation where you get to think out loud, or in your head if you want to. Coaching is a conversation where you find clarity on a way forward, or on those thoughts that go round and round in your head. So that's just some of the ways I've described coaching to different people. And what's really fascinating to me, well, the paddock one is interesting because I've had people that go, oh, yes, I'd love that. They can picture the paddock It's connected. That metaphor is connected for them, and they're away. And that might be after describing it in some other ways. And then I'll use that one and they'll go, oh, I see. Oh, yeah. No, I'm really up for that. And other people I've used it and they've just looked like, hey, really, really like blank and confused. Like, and, you know, that's helpful in the sense that if I do then go on and coach them, I mean, it's not to judge, but that might be somebody who actually doesn't find metaphor super helpful. Potentially, I wouldn't make that, you know, assumption there and then, but it may be true. So it's helpful in a way. This, you know, the way people react to these descriptions is quite helpful in telling you a little bit about them, I think. So, and I've heard loads of other ways of describing it.
And I noticed that none of those ended with so that.
Yeah, I think the so that is the kind of my background thinking. So my question for this conversation is so that they understand what it's not, what it is, so that they see how it might benefit them, is my kind of, I suppose you could say it's my kind of hidden agenda. I want to be able to explain coaching to people so that they do those things, so that they get that clarity that I've described in those bullet points. But I wouldn't necessarily feel I needed to express those to them.
Oh, that's interesting. Because as I was listening to you saying those things, the thing that I was going in my head was so that you can feel more confident about moving forward in your career, so that you can be clearer in meetings, so that you can be feel less like you've got imposter syndrome and be more present in meetings with your team, so that you don't go home every night and dump it all on your partner, so that you sleep.
That's their so that's, isn't it? Yeah. That's painting a picture for them of the potential positive outcomes for them of coaching, which you're absolutely right is the next part of the sentence of when you're describing what coaching is. I suppose the bullet point list I kind of explained at the beginning was my so that's, so that they understand, but I think you're right that their so that's are a crucial part of that. That's the crucial part of them going, oh, I see how it will benefit me.
What was the
It was a kind of that's good. I like that. I think I probably haven't been great at doing that for new and prospective clients. I think I know the reason why I haven't as well.
Is that something you're going to disclose in public, or is it better just to own that internally?
I think I'm happy to share in the interests of there might be other people listening who resonate with this. I think it's something around being salesy. I balk against being salesy, possibly quite extremely balk against it. So possibly don't always explain the benefit of coaching to the person coached in the described in the sense you just have with so that you can. And maybe it's about fear of creating Expectation.
Uh-huh.
Oh, this is interesting. I haven't realized this before about myself and the way I've been talking about coaching. So this is hot off the press, as it were. I think I fear promising too much, in the sense, and I think where that might come from is sometimes I find that people, so I was speaking with somebody recently about maybe having a coaching session, and they'd been talking to me already about what was going on for them in their life. And there's a lot going on in their life. And they have all these questions going around about what's next for them in their life in lots of different areas of life. And I said, maybe a coaching session might be helpful to you. And they said, yes, because then I can work out this, 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 and this. And part of me just kind of, whoa, hang on a minute. I was talking about a coaching session. Like, there's something about right sizing people's expectations around what the outcome might be of a coaching session. And so that thing about saying, this is what coaching is, it's a space for you to think, or whatever you say, so that you can kind of almost feels like it's pinning down a potential result.
And none of those examples that I used were so that you can earn £200,000 a year, or so that you can have a Porsche, or so that you can move house, or so that you can whatever. Because there's something, isn't there, about, I hear about managing expectations, and there's something about not over-promising, but there's also something about recognizing that this will be a conversation which moves them forward a bit. Because most conversations that people have do not move them forward a bit. And that's our unique bit of ninja.
Yeah, for sure.
It's that at the end of a coaching conversation, somebody will have moved forward a bit, and that's not over-promising. So I wonder what it would have been like with that person if you'd said, okay, let's have one conversation so that at the end of it, you've moved forward a bit. And then if you want to have more conversations to do a bit more movement in different areas, then let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's good.
Does that feel like over-promising?
No. No, not at all.
Because each time they come, if we partner and work out what we need to do, they will move forward a bit. And then when they come next time, they'll move forward a bit, but it will be a different bit from the last time. And all of that creates the momentum that happens between the sessions. And then it's the process that actually does the amazing work. Not you.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, so I'm formulating some thoughts around how to speak to people about coaching. And I think there's more to explore in terms of that description, how we describe coaching. But my new insight so far is that there's a so that you can.
Yeah.
That is right-sized in terms of expectation, but linked to their question or what it is they're bringing. Interesting. I'm still really keen to explore a bit more this whole thing about how we describe it. Because often when you're in a conversation with somebody who's just, you're in a first session, or you're in a kind of chemistry check session or introductory session, or you're emailing someone, or it's important to be quite succinct, I think. You can't always just sit and, well, I don't think even in person it's that useful to waffle on for too long about things, is it? It's good to have some succinct ways of describing coaching. that you hope will land with that person. And I'm just sort of, maybe what I'm looking for is not out there. I'm not really looking for a formula, because I'm kind of old enough in the tooth to know that life rarely works on formulas. People just are so diverse, and there's not going to be a formula for this. But I'm just wondering if there's a kind of, I can't think of the right word, but if there are some boundaries around it, or some, not guidelines, that's not the right word, if there are some thoughts around what might land, maybe with different people or in different contexts, or...
Because what I'm noticing as you're speaking there, Liz, is that some people don't want to know very much at all, and some people want to know everything, and why does it work, and what you're going to do, and what's it going to look like. And then you've got all those in-betweeny things. And I think the real challenge that we have is that coaching is not like any other conversation that people have. Because but there's a lot that we can say that's about what we're not doing. I'm not the expert. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to do this, and I'm not going to. And that feels so negative. So I'm wondering how we say that in a way that's really positive to people.
I suppose in some ways what you just said prompted a question for me. How much do they want to know? Maybe that's the first question.
What a great question.
How much do you want to, what would you like to know about coaching?
Yeah.
Or what do you already know about coaching? Or what's your experience of coaching?
I would ask a future focused question though.
Yeah, good.
Save you might get a lecture.
Yeah. How much do you know about it? Or what are your expectations?
What do you need to know? Yeah, what do you need to know by the end of this conversation that we're having right now that's going to enable you to make a decision about whether this is the right thing for you or not?
Yeah, it's good.
Because that's making the question the right size, isn't it? And then you can offer your offer.
Yeah. Sometimes when you're in that conversation, that kind of pre-booking, if you like, the conversation before they've booked any sessions, the information they're giving you around their own experience or understanding of coaching is then formulating your responses. So, I've had people say, well, I'm really just hoping you're going to tell me what to do. In which case there is a need for some clarification around, well, I won't be doing that.
Or given that I won't be doing that, what is it that will be useful?
And
I think that's an area where a lot of disagreement happens in conversations, when the coach goes, well, I'm not going to tell you anything. And the person we're talking to goes, well, that's weird, because every time I pay anyone any money, I expect them to pay me something, to tell me something. And I wonder whether there's a different way of saying that doesn't go, well, I'm not going to do that, because that, again, that's negative, isn't it? So how do we turn that into a much more positive build?
For sure. I mean, I definitely think that it needs to be couched in positive language, rather than I won't be doing this. It's not this, it's not that.
Yeah.
It needs to be, it is this, it is that. I will do this. Yeah, because some people really react to the phrase, you hear it described. I haven't described it like this, but you hear people say, I won't be it, I won't be giving you any advice or suggestions. You have all the wisdom you need type.
At which point they want to go, well, I wouldn't be talking to you if I thought I did, would I?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's not helpful. But
you said they'll tell you said they've got the answers. And actually that, there's something, isn't there, about engaging in a conversation that builds on what they've said and that makes connections with what they've said.
Yeah. It's a conversation.
Yeah.
It's not a sales pitch. It's not a meeting. It's not a teaching situation. It's a conversation.
That helps people to do some good sense making and some good meaning making. That's going to move them forward.
Yeah.
So how are we doing on your thoughts, Liz?
I think I'm slightly reframing
the
question. I mean, this has happened on so many levels for me as this coaching adventure has been emerging, that when I think about things within the kind of, we're trying to make a living, aren't we, as coaches? And it's not easy if you're an independent, if you're a freelance coach working on your own. But when my brain switches into any kind of, I need to make this work, this is a marketing selling situation, my best thoughts just go out the window. And to some degree, I think this had begun to move into that area. But I think when I allow it to stay in the exploring, relational sphere, framework, it stays as just that, an exploration, a relational thing. You're having a conversation with someone about their life. Usually these things come about because you're just speaking to someone about what's going on for them, and then you begin to speak a bit about your offer and how you may support them if they're looking for that. So it's very organic, it's very relational, and probably, I could carry on trying my paddock metaphor and finding other metaphors and other ways to describe it, and carry on exploring and seeing what lands, and using my intuition to discern which phrase to use in that conversation with that person, which phrases. I think for me, a challenge is always not saying too much. I can be very wordy. So I think a key insight for me has been start with what do you need to know about coaching, so that by the end of the conversation you'll be able to decide. I think starting with that is really great. Yeah, and kind of, because I have found myself in conversations in the past in response to a potential client. I have found myself expressing the negatives. Well, it's not really about advice giving. It's not really about this. And so just watching out for that, and maybe changing that into a more positive framework. Hmm.
So what are you going to say to the person who you might bump into tomorrow?
Hmm. Do you mean just an imaginary person that I
Yes,
may
an
bump
imaginary
into?
person who you might bump into tomorrow.
That, well, in the context of a conversation where they're sharing what's going on for them, I'm going to say, coaching is something I offer. Do you know much about coaching? And then I can't really tell you what I'll say because it depends what emerges in the conversation.
Indeed.
But that's just your individual coaching client. Then there's also the sponsor clients.
Mm.
And that's a slightly different context.
Yeah.
If I'm speaking to, I don't know, a head teacher tomorrow of a school, or the leader of a charity, or that's a slightly different conversation.
Mm.
Yeah, that's a slightly different conversation. But all that we've talked about so far in this conversation is still relevant to the actual client, whoever they're buying the coaching in for. And
there's a spectrum, isn't there, when you're talking to the organization? There's the people who are commissioning, who are very specific about what they want, right up to the other end where they know they need something, but they don't know what it is or who needs it or what it needs to look like.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So go on.
So I was going to say that is an important thing to explore, in the sense that maybe not right now, but that's just a different dynamic, because you have, yeah, like you say, you have some commissioners or sponsors of coaching who most definitely have an agenda for the coaching, which may or may not be the same as when you sit with the client, what their agenda is. So that's a whole other conversation. I think the one thing that I'd love to just, in your podcast in your conversation with Sue, you talked a little bit about, in that situation where it's sponsored coaching by someone in the organisation, the sense of it being remedial work and of being done because the person's lacking in some way, and how to speak to that person about the coaching in a way that, well, yeah, in a way that enables them to approach it without that sense of lacking, and but with a positive sense of how they might benefit. But again, I guess it's around just, yeah.
So there's something about talking to the sponsor, and there's also talking to the person who's come for the coaching. And the sponsor question is about making sure that they are also involved in the conversation. So how will you know at the end of 3 months that the coaching has been useful for this person? And what part do you play in helping, in supporting them to achieve that?
Yeah, that's good.
And the commission people, my first question to them is always, what do we need to talk about for you to trust me enough to do this? So that you just get it out there quickly.
Can you say that again? What do
we need to talk about before we do the work so that you trust me enough for us to be able to do it?
I like that. It's great.
So how are we doing on your thoughts, Liz?
I think we're doing good. I think it's been good to say them out loud, some of those different ways of describing coaching. It's been good to identify that it's good to speak about coaching in the positive, to start with the question around what they want to know, and also the so that you can addition to the description.
Cool.
I'm definitely going to go and think more about that.
So is that enough?
That's great. Thank you. Yes.
So my question to you, lovely listeners, is what insights have you had? And what do you need to go back from your dog walk and write down right now? Thank you, Liz, for coming to the Coaching In. If people want to talk to you more or hire you to be their coach, how do they get in touch with you?
By my website, which is www.lizogborn.coach, or on an email, info@lizogborn.coach, or on LinkedIn.
Brilliant.
Liz Ogborn.
Thank you very much, Liz Ogborn, for coming to the Coaching In. I'm Claire Pedrick, and thank you for listening, everyone. Thank you, Liz. Bye-bye, everyone.
If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, we'd love you to share the podcast with a friend or leave a comment on social media. And if you'd like to become a regular at the Coaching In, you can subscribe on Podbean and all major podcast channels. We look forward to welcoming you next time. You've been listening to The Coaching In, 3D Coaching's virtual pub. For more information, check out 3dcoaching.com.